everyone, it's Annie Pennington, and I'm going to show you how to tube set a round faceted stone. I'm using a 4mm orange CZ, but this technique can be used to set any size of round stone, from about 1mm to 6mm. To get started, you need to choose the correct size tubing to set your stone. The inside diameter of the tube needs to be about 0.5mm smaller than the diameter of your stone, and the outside diameter of the tube needs to be about 0.5mm larger than the stone. To check this, place the stone on top of the tubing and look down on it. About half the diameter of the wall should be visible around the stone. I'll include links to the tubing and all the other materials I use in the info box below. Even though I purchased 4mm stones, each stone varies slightly, and you must match the burrs you use to the specific stone you're using. Place your stone table side down on your bench pin. Always zero out your calipers before you measure to make sure that you'll get an accurate reading, and then close the wide part of the calipers onto the girdle of the stone. You can see mine is 3.9mm, so I need to choose burrs as close to that as possible to ensure a good fit. Next, you need to measure the burrs for each stone. I start out with a ball burr to remove material and start the seat, and then finish with a setting burr to refine the seat. Place the burr into the wide part of the calipers and close them. Then, in order to get an accurate reading, rotate the burr. This prevents you from accidentally choosing a burr size that's too large. Ideally, you want the burr to be exactly the same size or slightly smaller than the diameter of the stone. Then repeat these steps to choose the correct size setting burr. When you cut the seat, you want to have complete control over the burr. So rather than holding the flex shaft handpiece in the palm of your hand, hold it similar to how you hold a pencil. I like to place my middle finger on the shaft of the burr right up next to the end, and then use my ring and pinky finger to brace my hand against the bench pin or against the piece itself. This allows me to use my middle and index finger and my thumb to control the burr so that it doesn't jump around. It takes some getting used to, but for me it's the best way to have full control. Brace your tubing against the bench pin and then lubricate the ball burr. I use a ball burr first to remove the bulk of the metal for the seat, which helps the setting burr last longer. And the great thing about a ball burr is that it's self-centering, so you don't have to hold it at a specific angle. No matter how you hold it, the burr will cut a centered seat. Personally, I like to cut a little, turn the tubing, and then cut a little more. This is just something I learned and started to do early on when I began working with burrs, and it isn't necessary, but to me it seems to make it easier to keep the seat centered. That could just be me though, so if it doesn't work for you, keep your tubing stationary. Use the ball burr to cut into the tubing to the widest part of the ball burr. Now it's time to cut the seat with a setting burr. The angle of the burr cuts a bevel into the wall of the tubing that matches the pavilion of the stone. This can vary from stone to stone and it may need to be adjusted, but for now, let's assume that this burr matches the pavilion of my stone. Unlike the ball burr, it's extremely important that this burr be inserted perfectly straight up and down into the tube. Angling it at all from side to side or top to bottom will result in an uneven seat, and therefore an uneven stone. Lubricate the burr and then cut a seat. It doesn't take much, just a few spins. To test the fit, place the stone table side down and press the tubing down onto the stone. You want it to be a tight fit, so the stone shouldn't fall out when you turn it over. Inspect the stone in the tube with magnification. You want the table of the stone to be parallel to and just slightly higher than the top of the tube. I can see here that my stone is uneven, so I need to recut and adjust the seat. Continue to make small adjustments as needed until your stone rests perfectly in the setting. To determine how long you need to cut the tubing, use the calipers to measure the height of the stone. Gently grasp the stone in the wide part of the calipers and measure the height from the table to the cullet. You don't want the cullet sticking out from the bottom of the setting, so you'll need to cut the tubing longer than the height of the stone. Remember that the stone will be set down into the tubing, so make sure to take that into consideration. Lock your calipers to the height you want, and then use the jaws to scribe a mark on the tube where you'll cut it. Use a miter jig or a tube cutting jig to cut the tubing at the mark, and then clean up the bottom of the setting. Make as many settings as you need, and then solder them onto the piece you're making. Then finish your piece however you'd like. Setting the stone should be the last thing you do. Now comes the fun part, setting the stone. I use this set of setting punches. They come in a variety of sizes, and they're these little steel punches with a concave end. They need to be polished because you don't want to transfer any marks to your tube when you're setting the stone. These sets come with a small wooden handle, and attached to that handle is a small chuck, which is used to hold whatever size punch you need. They're really easy to use. Place the punch on top of the tube, and then rotate the punch, and that will slowly burnish the walls over your stone. Pick a setting punch that's slightly larger than the outer diameter of your tube and secure it in the chuck. Place your stone table side down on your bench pin, and then press the tubing down onto the stone. If it stays in and isn't loose at all, you're in good shape. Make sure the table is level and everything looks right, and then carefully place the punch on top of the setting. Then gently press down and rotate the punch. You only want to do this a little bit before checking to make sure that your stone hasn't shifted. Take a look from all sides, and if it looks good, go ahead and continue pressing down and rotating the punch until the edge of the setting folds over the girdle of the stone. It requires a surprisingly small amount of metal to secure the stone in the setting. Check the stone again, and to test and see if it's tight enough, press against the back of the stone with a toothpick. If it pops out, continue to set the stone. Now, just one thing I want to mention. There are a lot of folks who skip using the handle and just use the steel punch with a mallet to set the stone. This works, and it works well, but be careful not to strike too hard or you risk chipping your stone. And now your stone is set. You can leave it like this, but for a more professional finish, you'll want to tidy up the top of the setting. First, I like to smooth out the setting a bit more with a steel burnisher. This further presses the metal down onto the stone and gives it a cleaner edge. Just work your way around the setting and burnish it evenly. Take a look at the difference just a little bit of burnishing makes. Here's the setting I just burnished, and here's what it looked like after only using the punch. Looks better, right? Well, to finish it up even more, use a rubberized abrasive that's safe for stones to polish the top edge of the setting. Now this is important. If you're not setting a diamond, make absolutely sure that the abrasive you use is safe for stones or you will scratch your stone. Keep polishing the setting until it's perfectly smooth, and if you really want a clean finish, use a sharp graver to tidy up the edge of the setting along the facets. And there you have it. Tube settings are a quick and easy way to set small, round, faceted stones. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Now, head on over to your studio and get to work. Thanks for watching.